Imagine like a pastor standing at the pulpit telling the congregation that the absolute best thing they can do for their spiritual health is to pray for their enemies to be totally ruined. No blessing them, no forgiving them, just, complete ruin.
Yeah, that sounds wild, right?
It really does. So welcome to today's deep dive. We are looking at this really fascinating, honestly, pretty emotionally raw sermon by Pastor Sung No at Praise Presbyterian Church.
It is a tough one. We're exploring this shocking concept of biblical curse prayers.
Yeah, basically why venting your darkest, most vindictive anger to God might, weirdly enough, actually be the healthiest thing you can do.
To really get to the bottom of this, we have to look at Psalm 109, specifically verses 6 through 20.
Oh man, that passage is intense.
It really is. It is written by David, the famous king of Israel, but it honestly reads less like a holy psalm and more like just a visceral, unhinged rant.
Unhinged is definitely the word for it. David literally prays for his enemy's life to be shortened. He prays for his kids to become wandering orphans begging in the ruins of their own home.
And he even asks for Satan himself to stand as their accuser in court. It is brutal.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am really struggling with how this text even fits. Love your enemies is basically the core of the faith, right?
Right, absolutely.
So praying for someone's kids to starve does not sound like, spiritual venting. It sounds like sheer malice. How on earth does a pastor justify this text?
Well, it is a really jarring contradiction. And a lot of scholars actually try to soften the blow here.
Oh, like making excuses for him.
Exactly. They will argue that David was just spiritually immature, or maybe he was simply quoting the terrible things his enemies were saying about him.
But verse 20 completely sinks that whole he said, she said theory.
Right, because of what he asks for.
Yeah, David explicitly says, God, take all those horrible curses and make them happen to my betrayers. Like, he genuinely wanted his enemies destroyed.
He meant every single word. And that raises a really critical point for us. Suppressing deep betrayal behind this polite religious mask, it actually only makes you sick.
Yeah, because if you harbor that dark, toxic anger and just pretend everything is fine, it just rots you from the inside out.
Exactly. Which brings up this great analogy.
Right, the spiritual trash can. I really like this way of thinking about it. You wouldn't leave toxic, rotting garbage just sitting on your living room floor, right?
No, of course not. It would contaminate your whole house.
It would ruin your relationships, too. So instead, you take it directly to the one place that can actually safely dispose of it.
Which sounds great in theory, but, you might be thinking, sure, David was an ancient king in a brutal era. Nobody actually prays like this today.
Yeah, you'd think we'd move past that.
But in this sermon, Pastor Sung No reveals that he did exactly this.
Wait, really?
Yeah, when his family immigrated to the U.S., his father ran a Chinese restaurant. And a church elder, actually the very man who had baptized the pastor, blackmailed them.
That is just so messed up.
It gets worse. He threatened to report their immigration status, and he literally stole their restaurant.
The level of betrayal there is just staggering. By a church elder, no less.
So every single night, the young pastor prayed intense, completely unfiltered curses against that elder. He asked for the man's business to fail, for his family to be ruined.
Just like Psalm 109.
Exactly. And what's fascinating here is the psychological brilliance of what he was actually doing. By screaming his raw, unedited anger at God, he avoided taking real-world revenge.
So he didn't go slash the guy's tires or, start a literal, blood feud.
Right. Emptying that toxicity into the spiritual trash can, it eventually made room for genuine forgiveness years later.
But wait, so if the pastor dumps this toxicity into the spiritual trash can, the trash still exists somewhere, right? It doesn't just vanish into thin air.
It doesn't.
So where does it actually go?
Well, that is where the theology gets really interesting. Because the early church didn't just read Psalm 109 as David's personal diary.
Oh, they saw a bigger picture.
Yeah, in Acts 1, they framed David's curses as a prophetic blueprint for the ultimate betrayal. Judas Iscariot. The venom David poured out is applied directly to Judas betraying Jesus.
Okay, but here's where the script kind of flips. Because when Jesus himself is on the cross, facing that ultimate betrayal from his friends and the crowds, he doesn't pray the curses from Psalm 109.
No, he doesn't.
He doesn't call down ruin on anyone. He actually prays for their forgiveness.
Which, if we connect this to the bigger picture in your earlier metaphor, means Jesus didn't just ignore the trash. He acted as the incinerator.
Oh, wow. The incinerator. I like that.
Instead of reflecting the curse back at humanity and keeping that feud going, he absorbed it completely, He took the brunt of that toxic anger.
Breaking the endless destructive cycle of human retaliation.
Exactly.
So venting that darkness, it really isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It is basically a vital safety valve for your own soul.
Letting you drop the knife so you don't hurt yourself or anyone else.
You just hand it over and let the incinerator handle it.
It allows you to step entirely out of the cycle of vengeance.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question for you to mull over as we wrap up. If you are secretly harboring a deep grudge right now, is your attempt to be polite and forgiving on the outside actually the very thing keeping you bitter on the inside?